It's the system that is broken. It's the system that is designed to keep you doubting yourself so that you don't disrupt the system. But when you recognize these dynamics, you can start to reclaim your narrative.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornis, ex-highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
All right, now let's pull back the curtain on what's happening inside your brain and body during these moments and how those responses can unintentionally undermine your authority. By understanding the science behind these experiences, you will see how your mind and your body are reacting exactly as they're wired to, but also how you can shift those responses to serve you better. We're going to look at 5 key neurobehavioral dynamics that are at play. So the first one I just mentioned, amygdala hijacking. Those of you that have listened, you know what this is. To my new listener, I'm going to explain this real quick. So your emotional alarm system is called the amygdala. The amygdala acts as your brain's warning system when you perceive a threat, whether it's a dismissive tone, being interrupted, or your idea being overlooked. It triggers an immediate fight or flight response. So what is happening in your brain and body? The stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol flood your system, preparing you to react rather than respond thoughtfully, because your brain thinks you're going to be eaten by a bear. And remember, they cannot eat you. You're not in physical danger. You do not need adrenaline and cortisol running through your body at such a high level all the time, because that is chronic acute stress and your body's not made for that. And it causes significant physical and mental health damage. The impact of this in these moments, your ability to access higher order thinking like reasoning and persuasion is suppressed. Your voice may waver, your tone might sharpen or get weaker, or your words may even fail you, all of which can unintentionally reinforce the perception that you're not confident or credible. But that's just your body and brain responding to what it perceives as a physical threat. Here's another thing I think I've talked about in the past, the hippocampal impairment. This is why stress scrambles your memory. The part of your brain, the hippocampus, is responsible for memory and for recall. This part of your brain is so sensitive to the neurochemical, the neuromodulator cortisol. Why does that matter? So when stress levels are elevated, your hippocampus struggles to encode or retrieve information, leaving you feeling like your mind has gone blank in the moment. And here's the real life implication. You might forget a key statistic, lose track of your main point, or struggle to respond concisely, appearing unprepared or unsure, even when you're neither of those, because something's happened in a moment that you're not expecting. You've been blindsided. And then you go into these different events, the amygdala hijacking, your hippocampal impairment. These things start to get in your way. And then we go back to the mirror neurons and what we call emotional contagion. So humans are hardwired for empathy through these mirror neurons, which allow us to sense and reflect the emotional states of other people. So what exactly is happening here? If you appear visibly stressed, let's say you're tense, your voice is shaky, you're talking too much, it makes it harder for your ideas to land, for them to believe you because of a believability bias. The fourth system that I want to talk about today is what's called the HPA axis. This is the chronic stress culprit, and it is one of my favorite systems in our brains. It is really fascinating. So, what is HPA axis? It stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. This is your body's stress response system, activating the release of the stress hormones or the neuromodulators when a threat is perceived. When your brain thinks through the lens of the amygdala that a bear is about to attack you, even though it's Bob in the cubicle next door who what? Can't eat you. He cannot eat you. Chronic stress implications. In high pressure environments where dismissal or interruption is frequent, the HPA axis can stay overactivated, which means it is online for too long, thinking a bear is going to attack at any moment. This leaves you in a state of constant hypervigilance. This feels horrible. It diminishes your ability to stay composed. It increases your emotional reactivity, and it reduces your resiliency over time. If you keep this system online and hyperactivated for too long, you will topple over that threshold that I talked about a few episodes ago into emotional dysregulation. That is not a fun place to be. If you feel you're there, this is what's happening. Back to neuroplasticity, your brain's built-in reset button. This is back to that empowering piece. It's not the end. Your brain is neuroplastic. This means it has the ability to rewire itself. So using thought work and mind management, that is how we rewire our brains back to some semblance of seeming normalcy. Here's some more science. With consistent intentionality, you can interrupt these stress patterns, retrain your automatic responses or reactivity, maybe is what we should say, and build new neural pathways that support calm, clarity, and confidence. But honestly, until you understand why this stuff is happening, it can be very difficult to do the how-to. The how-to is thought work. Let's talk a little bit about the practical application. So thought work, like identifying and reframing limiting beliefs and unhelpful thought patterns, helps your brain create these new pathways, making it easier to show up with more authority in these high-stakes situations. Your brain's responses in these moments aren't a flaw. There's nothing wrong with you. These are survival mechanisms designed to protect you. But the good news is that with awareness and practice, challenging the ridiculous words that are just, spitting out of other people's mouths or running through your own gray matter. These are reactionary thoughts. They're automatic. They're neurobiological. They are your brain interpreting whatever circumstance that's neutral that's happening around you through your own story and experience. All right, in the next segment, we will explore how to leverage this understanding into actionable tools that work with your brain, not against it. I want to now get into the systemic roots of bias and the socialization of women in the workplace. The systemic forces at play that make believability bias and dismissal such pervasive issues. While it can feel personal, this isn't about fixing you. It's about uncovering the societal, cultural, and organizational patterns that perpetuate these dynamics. When we can understand these roots, we can navigate and disrupt them with clarity and intention. Yes, more disrupting. Let's talk about the socialization of women specifically. We are playing by rigged rules. From childhood, women are conditioned to prioritize harmony, avoid conflict, and seek approval. These ingrained behaviors stem from our education. Girls are rewarded for compliance, perfection, and quiet achievement, while boys are encouraged to take risks and be vocal, even if they fail. We learn from our media narratives. Women are cast as caregivers and supporters, rarely as disruptors or decision makers. If women are wealthy on TV, they're typically evil villains, Cruella de Vil types. We are rarely cast in society as these norms. The cultural norms, phrases like be a good girl, not in the, fun book way, or don't rock the boat, reinforce a belief that assertiveness is unlikable or unacceptable. The workplace impact. This means that we avoid self-promotion for fear of seeming arrogant. We are over apologizing even when we're not at fault. Your brain's reward system associates pleasing others with safety, creating mental resistance to challenging the status quo. This triggers that same stress response as physical threats, making advocacy for yourself feel emotionally risky. You think a bear's going to eat you if you push back. You have thoughts. I don't deserve to be heard, or they're going to criticize me. The next piece I want to get into a little bit is complicity in leadership and why the status quo persists. So leaders are often resistant to systemic change, and they're resistant for three main reasons. The first one is the cost of change. Addressing bias requires confronting personal privilege, biases, and complicity, an uncomfortable process most leaders avoid. I've said this before. We cannot wait for institutions and allies to change systems. They don't have any skin in the game. It doesn't matter to them if the system changes or not. Often, many of them, whether they know it or not, are complicit in discriminating systems. A lot of them benefit from systems that marginalize people. They don't have any reason to change the system, and expecting them to change the system is expecting them to confront their own personal privilege, their own biases, and how they have played a part in what's happening. Most people are not going to do that. Do not wait for institutions to change. I want them to change. I hope they change. I hope people will be brave and take responsibility. A lot of people out there are doing their darndest to make these things change. But in your personal experience, if you're struggling with these things, you're probably in a system that is not changing anytime soon. Another part of this is emotional laziness. It's just easier to label women as too sensitive or difficult than to confront the systemic issues. When a woman raises concerns about bias or toxicity, leadership often gaslight her by suggesting she's overreacting, frames her concerns as personal issues rather than systemic problems, shifts focus to her tone, her delivery, what she's wearing to deflect accountability. And what's really fun is any of these that are done to you deflect and leave you feeling bad. You're not just a victim, but now you're left feeling like you're not good enough, like you haven't done it right. That's a double violence being done to women every day. And it is a psychological weapon and a tool to not only deflect accountability, but then make you feel terrible about yourself so that you stop bothering them and let them get away with bad behavior. Whether they know it or not, a lot of people are not intentionally doing these things. Some are, but not everybody. Some people just don't understand what's happening. They don't see they're being emotionally lazy. They don't see that they're terrified to challenge or push back against the system. Now, I want to jump into that gender double bind women in leadership face. This is a paradox. So let's unpack this just a little bit more. So you can be assertive and risk being labeled aggressive or unlikable. You could be accommodating and risk being perceived as weak or lacking authority and a doormat, a pushover. And this double bind places women in a no-win situation. If you push back and challenge in a meeting, say, or with a boss or a coworker, you're too much. You're a bitch. You're, too aggressive, too confident, too this, too that, too the other. You're too something. But if you stay quiet, then you're not leadership material. Then, you're that pushover. Research shows that as a woman's competence increases, her likability decreases in the eyes of colleagues, often in the eyes of everybody. Now, again, this is not a political show, but think about, especially here in the US, and I don't know if this is pervasive in other countries in politics, but look at how women politicians are spoken about versus men. You never hear about what men are wearing. A male politician could be standing in front of everybody in a $10,000 suit and a $5,000 pair of designer shoes and a $6,000 tie made of silk, and nobody questions them. But every female politician, everyone, is judged by what she wears. She's either too feminine or she's not feminine enough. Now, there's two great examples of this. Just speaking about women, Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton. Sarah Palin was bashed because she was given a wardrobe of like Chanel skirts and dresses. She had a very feminine style to her, and she got smashed. Then you have Hillary Clinton, who loves to wear the pantsuits, and she got trashed for being too masculine. It, regardless of these two brilliant women, it's just a matter of, do you agree with what they have to say or not? Regardless of that, that's an incredible example of how women, when they are in leadership, can be just trashed for the most ridiculous stuff. Meanwhile, men do not face this inverse relationship with superficial crap. This creates an uneven playing field. The next part of this is covert sexism and internalized misogyny. This isn't just perpetuated by male leaders. It's reinforced by everyone. This includes women. You may have noticed this in your experience. So we have the internalized misogyny. Women unconsciously adopt patriarchal norms. Most women don't even know they're doing it. They undermine others in their group in order to align with the dominant, often male, value systems. There's also the survival mechanism. Women leaders may distance themselves from female colleagues to avoid being perceived either as too soft or too masculine, depending on who the woman is that could use the support of another female colleague. So an example, a female leader may hesitate to mentor younger women for fear of being associated with gender advocacy, people that are, out there marching, or they may dismiss female employees' concerns as personal, not systemic. This behavior is tied to in-group, out-group dynamics. We also call this insider-outsider dynamics. People instinctively align with the dominant group to maintain their status, even if it means undermining their very own identity group. That's why it's very difficult sometimes to get the support of other women. especially women that went ahead of you and are pioneers. Like I've said, they will have the attitude of you can't hack it, or it was hard for us. It should be hard for you. You need to pay your dues. And the next piece of this is the disposable worker mentality and emotional labor. Women disproportionately carry the emotional labor in workplaces, such as mediating conflicts, managing relationships, soothing egos, solving problems. This labor goes unacknowledged, unrecognized. It's rarely seen as valuable. It's unpaid labor, and it adds to women's workload without recognition or compensation. And when women are burning out because of all of this additional workload, they're replaced rather than supported, reinforcing the narrative that they're just not cut out for leadership. Gaslighting and psychological manipulation. Gaslighting is a manipulative tactic used to undermine someone's perception of reality. It shows up in the workplace as minimizing concerns such as you're overreacting. It looks like deflecting accountability. That's just the way things are, or we've never done that before. It looks like reframing the narrative. We didn't dismiss your idea. We just don't think that there's enough data, or we need more information. There's consequences to this kind of behavior. You see, repeated gaslighting erodes trust in your own judgment, activates your chronic stress responses that perpetuate self-doubt. Over time, this creates a feedback loop where women stop advocating for themselves. But you were never broken. It's the system that is broken. It's the system that is designed to keep you doubting yourself so that you don't disrupt the system. But when you recognize these dynamics, you can start to reclaim your narrative. You can take back the narrative of your own life, and you can navigate these spaces with awareness that will bring you clarity as to what's happening, and it will help you be intentional. You can begin to respond, not react. You can begin to challenge, even internally, other people's thoughts and words. All right. In the next segment, we will explore actionable strategies to help you counter these dynamics, advocate for yourself, and protect your energy in workspaces that weren't designed with you in mind. And we'll do that by moving into actionable tools and strategies that can help you navigate believability bias and systemic dismissals with clarity and confidence. So these approaches, they're grounded in neuroscience, thought work principles, and practical applications to help you break through these barriers effectively. So the first one is about regulating your stress response. So why does this matter? When you're faced with bias, your physiological stress response can inadvertently undermine your ability to communicate clearly and advocate for yourself. You need to manage this response in order to show up in control. The first super quick hack is just diaphragmatic breathing. This is very simple. This is breathing from your belly. It's also box breathing. You place one hand on your chest and the other on your abdomen. You can do this right before you walk into a meeting, run to the restroom, after you've had a really difficult experience and you need to get your brain back online ASAP. You just breathe deeply into your belly, ensuring that the hand on your abdomen is what's rising more than the one on your chest. And this is what's going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and it reduces that fight or flight response. Now, you can do the box breathing as a part of this, and all you have to do is imagine a box when you're breathing. So you inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts. And you repeat that a few times. This is going to get way more oxygen and blood into your thinking brain, and it is going to kickstart that thought process again, your adult evolved brain, rather than living in the fight or flight of the amygdala, and get rid of that sort of hijack feeling. This technique shifts your automatic nervous system from the sympathetic, which is the stress state, to the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest state. reducing the likelihood of impulsive reactions or emotional escalation, or you feeling like you are out of control of your own emotional life. Then we need to go back to that idea of reframing the narrative. So why does this matter? The stories that you're telling yourself about your experience shape your emotions, your actions, and your results. So when you reframe this, it allows you to approach challenging situations with curiosity and with agency. So how do you practically do this? So you need to replace disempowering thoughts like, why don't they believe me? With reframed ideas like, their bias doesn't define my expertise or value. Remember, the rules of reframing is the new thought has to be true and believable, or your brain won't buy it. One of my favorite coaches says, I can tell myself all day long that I can fly, but the minute I jump out of a window, gravity exists. So your reframe needs to be true and believable. And I would suggest incremental changes, small things. You can use affirmations that are grounded in evidence. I trust my own knowledge. I trust my own experience, regardless of their perception. Cognitive reappraisal reduces the activity in the brain's threat detection system, which includes your amygdala, and it engages the prefrontal cortex for more strategic thinking. Another quick hack that I know about is communicating with confidence. How you deliver your message, sadly, can determine whether it's received with credibility. Your confident communication will disrupt the bias and assert authority. So when you flip the script on this and you use it to your advantage, you can actually become the disruptor of bias and you can assert your own authority. So you do not want to use hedging language. What are those? Those are phrases like, I think this might be wrong, but what do you think about? These things dilute your message. It's just like trying to train yourself to take all the ums and the you knows and the likes out of your speech. Instead, you need to use definitive statements like, the data shows, or my recommendation is, based on your experience, right? And your credentialing. Another thing that's really important is that the bias tends to align women with words like irrational, illogical. And so when you can use the opposite terms of the bias words that are often associated with women, like, not credible, things like that. If you can use the words like, this is a rational idea, this is a logical strategy, use these terms in your language so that you are cutting through the noise and you are literally flipping bias on its head. When these words are heard, it triggers the opposite effect of the believability bias. All of a sudden, you're cluing them in to the things that create credibility in other people that their stereotypes tell them are credible. Also, silence is your friend. After making a key point, pause with intention, whether it's you and a leader or you and an entire group of people you're presenting to. Give the room a pause. This signals confidence and allows your words to resonate. But this is the how-to. You have to learn to shoulder the uncomfortability and the anxiety of silence. These are all ways to disrupt believability bias. This isn't buying into it. This is a strategic tool to disrupt the believability bias in another person's brain and how they are interpreting you, not you personally, but the you that you represent in their social location and belief systems. This disrupts those biases that they have been immersed in their entire life. Confident body language activates these mirror neurons we were talking about in other people. making them more likely to perceive you as credible and competent rather than the stress, the anxiety that they will start to feel when you project those things and then they correlate you with yucky feelings. We don't need that. It's not helpful. It's not real. It's made up. So don't go there. The next one is leveraging allyship. Why does this matter? Bias thrives in isolation. Bias wants you to be alone and sad. It wants you to feel bad about yourself so that it will take the focus off of the bad behavior. Building a network of allies who amplify your voice can help disrupt systemic patterns and keep you from the thing that the believability bias loves, which is isolation. Quick strategies. Identify your allies. Seek out colleagues who share your values and have influence in the organization. Request amplification. Ask them to echo your ideas in meetings and acknowledge your contributions publicly. And this is also something you can do for others. So let's say you hear a friend of yours pitch something at a meeting, but then somebody else comes up behind them and talks over them or interrupts them. You can be the ally who says, "Hey, I was really interested in what so-and-so was saying. Could we go back to that for a second?" And you can model for the group how to give the focus back to the person who's speaking who got run over. You can be that ally. And hopefully by modeling this, they will do it for you too. Or you can strategically create these bonds with people that you do have allyship with and have each other's backs in this situation so that you're not left hanging in front of other people. Your collaboration and connection activates the brain's oxytocin system, increasing trust and reducing feelings of isolation. You don't feel so alone, and therefore you feel like you have solutions. Finally, let's focus on the internal shifts needed to build resilience, reframe experiences, and navigate bias with intention and strength. So the first thing is you need to question your thoughts. You need to challenge them, just like you challenge other people. Why does this matter? Your brain often fills in gaps with worst case scenarios, especially in high stress environments. Interrupting these patterns helps you regain control of them. So ask yourself when you have these thoughts, is this thought a fact? Or is it just a story my brain is making up? Same thing with other people. Is what they're saying a fact that can be proven in a court of law? Or is this just something that their brain is making up on the spot based in nothing? Through reframing your thoughts, this engages that prefrontal cortex, reducing reactivity and fostering strategic problem solving. Next, redefine your identity. Why does this matter? When bias and dismissal becomes pervasive, it can erode your sense of self-worth. Anchoring yourself in your core values and accomplishments creates an unshakable foundation. So how do you do this? For example, you can write down 3 non-negotiable values that define who you are as a leader. Non-negotiables. These are who you are. These are your values, and you define yourself by them. You can keep a wins journal. Here's a different type of writing that helps kickstart that thinking brain. Write down the wins, document your accomplishments, whether they're big or small. You can reflect on how your values align with your long-term goals, regardless of external validation. All of these practices strengthen neural pathways associated with your self-worth and your resilience, helping you to stay grounded under pressure. The next one is about protecting your energy. Why does this matter? Navigating bias and systemic dismissal is emotionally exhausting. Creating boundaries helps preserve your mental and physical well-being. You can do things like visualize a protective bubble around you. Imagine a clear protective barrier around you during toxic interactions, deflecting their negativity and their nonsense thoughts they're spewing at you. Another strategy is what we call micro moments of regulation. You can incorporate short grounding practices like taking a deep breath before meetings, using that box breathing, or stepping outside for a moment of calm after difficult conversations. Some people love to feel the wind on their face, the sun on their face. These kinds of things bring you back to reality and help to ground you. You can do an energy audit. Identify and reduce time spent on activities or interactions that drain your energy unnecessarily. These techniques reduce that activation of the HPA axis. It takes it offline so that it's not constantly hyper activated. It mitigates chronic stress and burnout. Another thing is just practicing compassionate detachment. So why does this matter? Detaching from others' biases or expectations allows you to focus on what you can control. You cannot change other people. You cannot make people do, say, feel, act, whatever, in any way that you want to. Other people will not do what you want. As soon as you learn that other people will not do what you want, and you cannot convince them to do, think, say, feel, act, whatever, in any way that you want them to, you will be free. That is freedom. You have to tell yourself their opinion is a reflection of who they are, their story, their belief system, their social location. Their opinion is not about me. It is entirely made up, and it is their brain's interpretation of what's happening. I, to them, am a neutral circumstance. Focus on the process, not the outcomes. The compassionate detachment reduces emotional reactivity and fosters psychological flexibility, a key component of resilience. So this week, I'm challenging you to experiment with any one of these tools, whether it's reframing your thoughts, running it through the model, and you can always find the interactive PDF of what the model is on my website. It's always at the bottom, very bottom of the website, like where the address and everything is. Just says the model, and you can download a interactive PDF there to get that sort of step-by-step guide of this incredible thought work tool. What is the thought that is creating the feeling, that's creating the action, that's producing the result, and run it back and forth. All of this stuff's going to protect your energy, and practicing this compassionate detachment, it's going to help you take back that power of owning your voice and your self-worth and your value, and help you navigate these dynamics with a different level of strength and bravery and perspective, because now you know the how-to. Now you know what to do to not take stuff personal. Okay, my friends, so the believability bias isn't a reflection of your value. It's a mirror of systemic dynamics and biological responses that have been perpetuated for generations. But here's some good news. You can learn to navigate them with intention and awareness. This is going to help you reclaim that agency in your own life, reclaim your own emotional life, rather than letting other people decide whether or not you're going to have a good day, regardless of the neutral circumstances happening around you. So this week, I challenge you to focus on one strategy that we discussed. Practice confident communication, replace those hedging words and phrases with definitive statements. Reframe one limiting thought, swap out a disempowering belief for one that aligns with your expertise, your value, and also that your brain will believe. You can create that micro moment of regulation, a brief pause to recenter yourself, go get some sunlight on your face, feel the wind in your hair, or a simple mantra like, my voice matters. Notice how these small shifts in how you think can change the way you show up for you. Take a moment to reflect on what stood out for you in this episode. What insights felt most relevant to your current challenges? and use that as your starting point for change. Remember, transformation only can begin with awareness. Your expertise deserves recognition. Whether your ideas are embraced immediately or not, your expertise is valid. You've earned it. You belong in the seat you've earned. The work you do to strengthen your own voice and take back that narrative of your own life, that is powerful. That is what matters. All right, friends. So if this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with somebody in your network that could benefit from these insights and strategies. We're stronger when we uplift each other and equip ourselves with the tools to navigate these dynamics together. And don't forget to take my Thought Saboteur quiz at charliehornetscoaching.com/quiz. The quiz is designed to help you identify the mental patterns that may be holding you back and to provide you a roadmap for breaking free from them. You are not alone. Your voice matters. Your expertise is valid. And you have the tools within you already to rewrite your narrative, both for yourself and for the spaces you navigate in your life. So keep showing up for yourself. Take care of your mind, protect your energy, and remember, you are capable of creating the change you deserve.